Estimates of how many rounds of ammunition were fired during the Battle of Gettysburg range anywhere from 4 to 7 million over the span of the three-day battle. But who fired the very first shot? Here along the Chambersburg Pike west of the town of Gettysburg, there are two different markers that indicate the firing of first shots during the battle. One is here at the base of the statue for Brigadier General John Buford, who commanded the Union cavalry fighting west of town. And the other one is a marker that's nearly 2 miles west of here down the pike. And it's not even on the Gettysburg battlefield. So the question is, which one is correct? Are either of them correct? Let's dive into the story of the first shot. Around 7:30 on the morning of July 1st, 1863, Union pickets from the 8th Illinois Cavalry were set up here behind me along the Chambersburg Pike, alongside pickets from the 12th Illinois Cavalry and the 3rd Indiana Cavalry. Lieutenant Marcellus Jones was in command of the picket line for the 8th Illinois, and he spotted dust kicking up to the west, clear evidence that Major General Henry Heth's Confederate division was on the move toward the town of Gettysburg. Jones was eager to give the Confederates a proper welcome back into the town of Gettysburg, so he borrowed a carbine from Sergeant Levi Schaefer, which he rested on a fence at the edge of the property just behind me here. He aimed at an officer riding out in front of his men, and he fired. Now, honestly, he was probably too far away to do any real damage, but it did cause a response from the enemy. Major William Pegram was in command of the Confederate 3rd Corps Artillery in the area. He was one of the best artillery officers in the Army of Northern Virginia, and he had actually once been described by Henry Heth as one of the few men who he knew was supremely happy when in battle. One of Pegram's guns fired back at the Union pickets here at the Whistler farm, with the first round hitting the trees overhead. This drew the owner of the property out of the house, a man named Ephraim Whistler. A second shot nearly killed Whistler, who ran back into the house, probably with a concussion. He was so shaken by this incident that many people who knew him say that that incident caused his death a few weeks later from heart failure. He was only 31 years old. So the Whistler House is actually kind of a cool site because you can look at video and pictures from just a couple of years ago, and it did not look anything like this. There was actually an addition on the house right here. It had been updated a lot in the time since the Civil War, but like much of the battlefield at Gettysburg, work was done to restore it, to make it look like it once did. And so as I'm talking here and I'm showing this, I'll show you a few of the pictures of some of that work. And I'll put a link down in the description so you can actually see the time-lapse video of them doing the work to restore the Whistler House to make it look like it does today. Pretty neat. So let's talk about this first shot monument here. 2 decades after the battle, Lieutenant Jones, Sergeant Schaefer, and a third man named Alex Ridler brought this marker here to the Whistler property, paid for out of their own pockets. Jones had purchased this small plot of ground here next to the house from James Mickler, who was the man who now owned the former Whistler property, so that he could properly mark the spot where he had fired what he was sure was the first shot of the Battle of Gettysburg. We're now back here at the Buford Monument, so let's talk about the first shot marker here. On the morning of July 1st, Lieutenant John Califf's Battery A of the 2nd United States Artillery set their guns up here along McPherson's Ridge. A section of those guns was placed in this spot under command of Lieutenant John Roeder. As the Confederates came across her ridge, about a half a mile west of here, the first shot fired by a Federal cannon came from this section, specifically gun number 233, which is printed right on the front, on the barrel. And it was forged at the Phoenixville Iron Works in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, really not that far from here. This is that exact gun. In fact, 3 more of the gun barrels that were in Califf's battery that day are now present here on the Gettysburg battlefield. John Califf himself tracked down those barrels after the war. And you can see right here, number 233. This is the very barrel that fired the first Union artillery round of the Battle of Gettysburg. It's worth pointing out that first shot claims were also made by the 13th Alabama Regiment, the 5th Alabama Battalion, the 17th Pennsylvania Cavalry, the 6th New York Cavalry, and the 9th New York Cavalry. So the debate will continue, especially among doubters who have a favorite alternative. It seems likely, though, that Lieutenant Marcellus Jones of the 8th Illinois Cavalry Pickets did indeed fire the first shot of the Battle of Gettysburg.